So it's a very common question to be asked, whether or not God exists. Like, how can I know that? So even my own 13-year-old son has asked me this question over the years. Dad, how do I know that God is there? How do I know that God exists? So if we look at Scripture, there's really three ways, maybe four ways that God has chosen to reveal himself. Now, we could obviously look at a lot of different examples of maybe how this plays out, but there are three or four primary ways that God makes himself known. So according to Romans chapter 1, one of those ways that God makes himself known is through creation. So God has made, because of the works of nature, because of the works of creation around us, we can see that there is a God. We can see the effects of what is here and know that it needs a cause sufficient to explain those effects. So we look at all the space-time continuum, we look at the world, we look at all that it takes to make this or for this to have been here, we know that requires an explanation, and God is the best explanation for that. We can also look at things like fine-tuning in nature and the beauty and intricacy of what we see around us. And intuitively we know, just like when we see something, that a beautiful piece of art or a computer or an iPhone or a watch or whatever, we know, hey, someone crafted that. We just have this intuition about us that is the case. And when we look around us, when we look both through the telescope and the microscope and in the world around us, we can see that there is so much intricacy and beauty and design in the world that it screams for a designer. These are a couple of ways right off the bat that we can know that there is a God. Another way that Romans 1 talks about is the conscience that we have in us. So humans are hardwired to know right from wrong. And so we know that there is this moral law outside of us that seems to govern us or have authority over us. And more than that, we know that we are guilty and that there is a judgment of sorts hanging over our heads. And when there is a law, there needs to be a lawgiver. And once again, this is something that points to God as the best explanation for this. Now, God's revealed himself in that way, but that's not enough to know him personally. It's certainly sufficient to know that he exists. But for us to know God exists in an even more intimate way, there's two additional means that God has given us to be able to know he is there. One of those is Scripture. So we don't believe the Bible just because it says that it's from God, but the Bible gives its own evidence that it is from God. So it is a divine book in many ways, in terms of prophecy and miracles and the fitness of the plan of salvation, the beauty and harmony of Scripture, the perfect moral law, and on we can go. It points to its divine author. It has divine fingerprints that point to a divine author. And the last way that we can know that God exists is in the person of Jesus. So the Bible describes Jesus as the full manifestation of God. He is God in the flesh. So to look and see Jesus is to see God. It is to see him in all of his power and all of his glory and all of his beauty and all of his perfection and his holiness and the wonder of his character and his teaching. We are able to see God most fully and most perfectly in Jesus. And when we see Jesus, we can know. And there's been many conversion stories of people who have been so compelled by the person of Jesus that because of him, they become believers in God, so on and so forth. So 4 ways that we can know God: creation, conscience, the Scriptures, and the person of Jesus Christ.